No.
Hey, by the way, I wanted to ask you, because I know you worked on The Bone for a while. Does Calta, does he have comedians in all the time and porn stars? Are those two big things for his show?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
like every week?
Comics every week. Ever since the Me Too movement, he hasn't done the porn star thing as much. When I was there in 2015, 2016, and 2017, I was there for 7 years. But the first 3 years, they had porn girls in all the time. And now it's kind of a little more, I don't want to say family friendly, but they definitely cleaned up after 2017-ish.
Yeah, and they probably had to. They probably had no choice.
I mean, Drew.
So let me ask you: if you took like 10 comedians on the Calta show, how many out of 10 would you say would be doubles or home runs?
He would get the comics from Side Splitters, the local comedy club. So most of them were pretty funny. I mean, he has a good ear for knowing like which comic is good. He'll say on air, I don't want to have this comic on or whatever. But the moments that are great for him is when he has like Jim Norton on and Rich Voss. A lot of the guys from the Opie and Anthony universe, because he's a fan of Opie and Anthony, so he sort of knows how to work with them. And also he's had guys like Shane Gillis on maybe like 3-4 years ago, right when Shane was sort of canceled and wasn't cool. And those are the moments that are good.
Wow, that was great. I mean, to have Shane Gillis on, he's fantastically funny. And that's important. I mean, if he's got an ear for comedy like that. And I felt that I did, but maybe I was just a little too picky about, and I just couldn't stand it when it went flat. So that's why I asked. But, I mean, Mike Calta's done very well, so I'm not surprised to hear that. And I heard you talking about when you left Calta's show that he was very unhappy about it.
I mean, it was one of the weirdest moments of my life. I don't know if you want to hear about it. I can break it down for you. I've told everybody about it. It's pretty much.
Yeah, I just, the reason I asked is because looking at radio right now, if I had a guy in my show who was your age, because how old are you, Ryan?
I just turned 30 6 months ago.
Yeah, so you were like 28 at the time or so, and somebody thought they could better themselves by leaving radio, which is very much a sinking ship, and the opportunities are really not that great. I would be so happy for someone if they could improve their situation by leaving. It sounded like you were working a lot of hours and not making a ton of money. So I was kind of surprised that he would be pissed.
It's honestly, it's sort of a breakup in a way. It was sort of a divorce. Pretty much what happened, I'll keep it short, but May 2022, he was like, I'm going to 98 Rock. I'm going to iHeart. I'm leaving the Bone. And we're talking on the phone, and he's like, I don't know if I can bring you aboard. He's like, if I need a board up over at iHeartMedia, I'll have you get hired. If you need to go somewhere else to make money, that's cool. So here's Tommy Chuck's info, who is the head of iHeartMedia. So I was emailing Tommy Chuck all summer because I'll never forget it. June 3rd, 2022, John Brennan, the program director, who was Calta's old producer and pretty much got the job because of that. I'll just say it now. He busts in so Calta did this thing called the after show where he would play the best of segments from 6 to 10, but he was allowing me to sort of hijack it with Hoppe Hour. And it was getting talked about. People were like, what is this show? Because people weren't used to it. I mean, MJ came up to me when I worked at Beasley, and MJ said, I remember when you would hijack his after show. And I did about 30 episodes. They're all on YouTube. It's all on my Ryan Hoppe Radio YouTube page. Everything I've ever done. And pretty much John Brennan busts in while I'm talking on air and pretty much says, get in my office after the show. And he goes, oh yeah, you have a speech impediment. You're never going to make it in radio. I want you to just play clips. He essentially said that in a very corporate way. So I said, fuck this. So then I did about 3 more times. I snuck on air on the weekend, but never again on Calta's after show. And I'm like, fuck this. I've been here 7 years. I've done everything for you guys. Did boxing matches for free, all this shit. So then iHeartMedia is like, do you want to go work with this guy named Ian Beckles, who I knew from the Bone, who played football for the Bucks and did a show? And I left. And I go to call Calta like July 31st, August 1st. I just remember dates well. And it's 2 rings to the voicemail. And then he blocks me on all social media, even though he told me that I could go somewhere else to make more money if the Bone couldn't provide it or wherever he was going to go. And then he does like it literally became how Bubba treated Cowhead for 10 years. It's literally what it's become here. Like he still talks about me, and it's like, bro, like you blocked me. And then I saw recently he unblocked me on social. So I'm like, you're obviously creeping on my profile, bro. Like, I'm not a dummy. It's just, the whole thing's annoying, bro. Here's what's most annoying about it, is I'll be at like a bar. I say this to any girl I go on a date with. I describe it as, if I'm in a room with 10 people that listen to the radio that are 25 to 54, one of them at least knows who I am. So if I go to a dive bar in downtown St. Pete, or if I go to a rock and roll concert, some redneck's going to know who I am and go, Hoppe, why'd you leave the Bone? Did you hear what Calta said about you? And it's very off-putting, Drew. Like, it's awesome. It's amazing getting recognized out and about. It's very flattering, especially when I'm on a date. It's a great look. But at the same time, sometimes it's a very dark energy, because you know how radio listeners are. Anybody can turn on the radio and be a listener, you know, especially when it's free radio and it's here in Florida. So you got all the bad shit crazy people. So you got to imagine me. I'm 6'9". I have a limp. It's very easy to recognize me. So I don't ever want to leave Tampa Bay. But there were times in the last year that I was like, fuck this. But I'm glad I didn't.
Well, the fact that when he left and he said, you know, oh, I hope you get a job. If I left and was taking the team with me, I would have that all set up, or you would want to have it all set up. You have to take care of your people. So but at that point, it seems to me he's kind of saying you're on your own anyway.
Well, yeah.
He's not guaranteeing your job.
Not just,
and then to act like you're a fucking slave or something. And did he talk trash about you on you after you?
He talked trash about me. I believe he had my ex-girlfriend on air. All this shit, bro. It was nauseating.
What?
It was literal. Or he did a Facebook post where he got my ex-girlfriend to talk about her side of our breakup, because I met her through the radio show, so she claimed to like own me, and I never responded to it. I wish her nothing but the best. Like, I'm not doing Jerry Springer radio. Like, I truly wish my ex nothing but the best, and it's nauseating. That was the most fucked up thing to probably happen in this decade, was when the 2 people I had the most trust for, my ex-girlfriend and Mike Calta, when they collaborated. That was quite possibly the most infuriating thing to happen this decade. And now whenever I'm on a date, and this is not me bragging, you know, when like a dude brags and they go, oh yeah, I go on dates and I get girls, and you're like, shut the fuck up. But I'll say this, whenever I'm on a date with a beautiful girl, I make sure that they're not a listener of the radio, because my last 2 girlfriends were listeners, and that shit, man, they'll love you when it's popular to love you, but they go with what the host says. It's quite funny what happens when you're no longer a part of a show. You really see who your friends are. And I've said that a lot recently. There's a lot of crickets when it comes to people I used to hear from. Hey, yo, can I get into that Calta event? I'll buy you drinks and allegedly give you some weed, or I'll hook up with you. I'm a beautiful girl. But when you leave the show, all of a sudden it's like you don't hear anything. You know, it's quite funny. This is like me venting to you. The first 30 minutes was me talking about your life, and now I feel like you're like my shrink.
No, I'm fascinated. I can tell you're a huge radio fan, and I'm a huge radio fan first, before I was ever on radio, and I'm still fascinated by radio. I love listening to new shows all the time, and I saw the list of all the shows you liked, and I was like, oh, what are these? Some of these shows I don't even know. I got to check them out. And I checked out your Instagram. And when you say people are no longer your friends, are you talking about the people that worked underneath Calta?
Yeah, because I used to hang out with them at bars. And they like all blocked me, and just not just people on his show, but like a lot of listeners that would invite me to a party and invite me here. And then it would be a picture and it'd be like, oh my God, Hoppe from the Mike Calta show is here. And then I leave, and then it's like there's no more invites, which doesn't bother me because I'm very much more busy now that I have a day job in radio. I keep it very private because it's kind of conservative, and I'm not. Like, I believe in some of the conservative beliefs, but by no means do I like vote or care about it. So I have to keep it very private. So then I'm making the most money I've ever made. And that was the other thing. It was like this was 2 years ago. So this was pre-inflation, but I literally could not afford to work there. Like Drew, it's crazy. Like, it's radio in the 2020s. You know how unimportant you are if you're on the radio in the 2020s? Wow, good. Congratulations.
No, I do. And people are always talking about how radio is dead. And it's not the place to be right now. It's not cool. And people your age just don't even listen to the radio, and they don't think about radio as being very important. So to have an opportunity to make a little more money, how could anybody deny you that?
I know, it's crazy.
Did they offer you more money?
No, it was going to be the same. The night show and some of the board ops during the day all make $15 per hour part-time. And then they literally, the best part, bro, this is such a session of you as my shrink, Drew. I've never had more of a session on my podcast.
No health insurance?
No health insurance. Here's the best part, though. They go, we're giving you a $5 raise from 10 to 15, 11 to 15 or whatever. But then they cut the hours so that you're making the same as if you were making 11 an hour.